So we're going to talk today about tips for secure, data-enabled innovation. And it's kind of a play on words, and I'll tell you more about that. So I'm currently Executive Director for the Northeast Big Data Innovation Hub, currently funded by the US government from the National Science Foundation, the National Institutes of Health, and Department of Transportation. I also am founder and CEO of my own consulting firm, FD Hint. I just became Vice Chair of the IEEE Engineering and Medicine Biology Society. Who's familiar with IEEE? Hands? Yay, ooh, a family of geeks, I love it. And I also chair the IEEE and UL, who's heard of Underwriters Laboratories? Please, a little bit. Okay, IEEE is more popular. The Clinical Internet of Things Data and Device Interoperability with TIPPSS standard, which we're bringing to all cyber-physical systems, which will affect all of us. I'm a former IBM VP and CTO. I worked for the NSF Cybersecurity Center of Excellence at Indiana University. And I started as a rocket scientist at NASA and Grumman. Who knew, right? Rocket science pays off. So let me tell a little bit about the hub. This is kind of my day job. I have a lot of them, as you can tell. I mentioned we're funded by a number of US agencies. Here are the projects we've had. And our job as a big data innovation hub is to be a community convener, very broadly, a collaboration hub, and a catalyst for data science awareness, education, information, innovation. We have 4 main focus areas: education, data literacy, health, urban rural communities, and responsible data science, including security, privacy, and ethics. All the stuff we have to worry about with all this data and AI stuff. When I first joined the hubs were born in 2015 when the National Science Foundation funded 4 regional big data innovation hubs. We're the Northeast, and there's a Midwest, a West, and a South. We had 1,400 humans that had participated in hub programs at the time, but my background is I was a global VP and a CTO for IBM, so now we have 17,000 humans around the planet. You know, you take what you've done before and bring it with you. And all this stuff I'm going to talk about is free, open, and online content, which is a beautiful thing. Going from industry to this is very liberating, you know, a lot of fun. So I'm going to talk to you about a couple of our programs. You could always go to anybigdatahub.org and learn about this, but we're going to talk about responsible data science, including security, privacy, and ethics. And we're going to specifically talk about this new TIPPSS standard that I led the development of, which is starting in connected healthcare, and then we're looking to bring it to the smart grid, precision agriculture, all sort of nuclear facilities, a lot of different things. And then we're going to talk about this National Student Data Core, which is really for any human. You don't have to be a student in school. You can be a learner of any age. We have people in their 50s and 60s, in and out of the workforce for 30 and 40 years that want to learn data science, and they use our free, open online content. And you can do that too. Your friends can do it. Your colleagues can do it. If you're trying to teach people what you're doing with data and they're like, I have no idea what you're talking about, you could be like, oh, I have this 3-minute little flashcard video you could watch. How cool would that be? So first, we're going to start with TIPPSS. As we all know, advanced technologies enable digital transformation. IoT, blockchain, machine learning, augmented reality, all these things, right? Big data, a lot of little data makes big data. But the problem is they're all new attack vectors, right? They can increase risk. So I'm going to use connected healthcare as an example. Anybody here in the healthcare industry? Yay. Okay, a couple. Okay. So we're going to use this as an example because healthcare is something important to all of us as humans. So connected healthcare leveraging advanced technologies and data can improve insights and outcomes, right? They know more about you. They know where you've been. They know what your biomarkers are. They know what environment you've been living in, your genome, your exposome, all this stuff. So we have connected healthcare devices and data, clinical care data, you know, when you go to the doctor or some provider, environmental data. There were fires in northern Canada. In New York, I needed an air purifier in my living room. That was bizarre. Patient lifestyle data and clinical and fundamental research data. All this data, so you have a compendium of healthcare data. If you were a hacker, ooh, that would be a very shiny object, wouldn't it? Ooh, very interesting. So the more devices and data that you have, you can get more insight, but also creates more security, privacy, attack vectors, and risk. So if you listen to Dr. Suzanne Schwartz at the FTA, she says the same thing. Any medical device connected to a communications network like Wi-Fi or public or home internet, people think, I'm at home, I'm safe. Oh boy. Opposite, right? May have cybersecurity vulnerabilities that could be exploited by unauthorized users. What does that actually mean? Well, the US FDA, or Food and Drug Administration, has recalled hundreds of thousands and millions of devices. These aren't devices made by some cute little company that nobody's heard of. These are companies you know and trust, but to protect them, I don't say it out loud, but you could look them up very easily. So in 2017, the FDA recalled 465,000 pacemakers due to cyber hacking fears. Hackers could reprogram 20 types of devices with adjacent access and a low skill level. Somebody with a hoodie living in their mother's house, in their basement, with low skill level, and within about 15 meters of you. How many people are like that today? Oh, look at all these people. Do we trust them? Sure. Do we know if we can trust them? What about when you're in an airport, you're in a mall, you're at the theater? This can happen anywhere. There have been voluntary recalls, quote unquote, you guys have a problem, recall this stuff, insulin pumps, cardiac devices, more insulin pumps, and even this year, FDA and CISA had an alert for patient monitor vulnerabilities for remote code execution and data exfiltration. Trust, privacy, security issues. These are all over the place, and it's probably only going to get worse. So way back when in 2015, when I was still a VP at IBM, actually we were working with a number of different consultants and companies, and I said, all this stuff is going to get hacked. They're going to come after us. And so the point is that connected healthcare devices and data is where we're starting with this TIPPSS standard, because if you hack a device, you can rather immediately kill a human. We're trying to protect the humans, the data, the devices, and the institutions. Then we think of connected hospitals, campuses, cities, and vehicles, autonomous vehicles, connected vehicles, whatever you call them, and clinical, scientific, and research device and data integrity. You may have heard during COVID, there was a large research institution, actually one in California, and the research was hacked. What happens when you hack the research? Well, they could take it, but what if they just change it? And then people are making decisions based on what they think the research said, and that's not what it said. That has very broad impact. So we need to protect these people, these devices, the data, and the institutions. So we need to protect the device, the hardware, software, and services. We need to protect from physical health and safety risk, financial risk, and reputational harm. We need to think about data theft, data integrity, and loss of privacy, like we just talked about. And we need what we call a defense in depth strategy, hardware, firmware, software, and service level, all the way up and down the stack. And we need to evolve our policy and culture to care about this and do something about it. So as I said, they're going to try to hack everything. Let's start with how we can protect the humans and go from there. So we thunk about this, so to speak. We thought about this in 2015. We started working with IEEE. And then we did a little pre-standards effort and came up with this, what we call the new cybersecurity paradigm, TIPPSS. It stands for trust, identity, privacy, protection, safety, and security. And some of you probably know trust and identity is IAM, identity and access management. Do any of you talk like that? Are you at that? It's a little deep technically. So anyway, trust and identity, allowing only designated people and services to have device and data access. First, you have to validate their identity to decide if you can trust them. Like, someone comes to your front door, it's the police. I'm like, prove it. Show me your badge. I'm going to call the police station, right? How do you do that? Well, you have multi-factor authentication. Do the devices do that with each other? Does the system next to grandma's bed that the doctor connects to and then manages her heart device, does that check all that stuff? Is that happening now? What a good question. And so that's what TIPPSS is about, is thinking through this and then doing something about it. On privacy, ensuring devices, personal and sensitive data is kept private, protecting devices and users from harm, as we said, physical, digital, financial, and reputational, providing safety at the beginning, designed in, as well as longitudinally through the use of the device, and then maintaining security of data, devices, and people. So we created this TIPPSS idea, and then we had, I'm just doing this for effect for the geeks who like stuff like this, but to let you know that we've thought about it at a very deep level. So we did this little pre-standards effort with IEEE, which means, like, what do you think you want to do? Why would you need a standard? We're like, well, we have to worry about all this stuff. We have to worry about clinical Internet of Things, data and device interoperability. And we start with, user experience, user interface, applications, integration, all the other standards that are out there. As they say, that's the beauty of standards. There are so many of them. It's supposed to be a joke for geeks. APIs and SDKs, application programming interfaces, software development kits, distributed ledger technology, people call blockchain if you're using that, a connection layer, data ingestion management, and all these data sources and targets on-chain and off-chain if you talk in a DLT perspective. And this is changing every day. There are always new devices, right? And then along the right, you can see going up and down, those are the TIPPSS elements, privacy, encryption, federated identity management, all these different elements. So we decided we need to worry about all this and make sure everybody's worrying about it. So we launched an effort, a working group. It was the first IEEE working group I was involved in. I'm an aerospace engineer by training, so I was an AIAA, so now I'm an IEEE chick. And so we created this working group to create a standard to establish the framework with TIPPSS principles for clinical IoT data and device validation and interoperability. When we first created this, IEEE said, how many people will be in this? I said, I don't know, 25 if I invite my best friends that I was an engineer with. We had over 300 people participate in this from 32 countries and 6 continents. And you know why? Because when you talk to somebody in this space that works with healthcare devices, IT supportive healthcare, the HIMSS organization, Healthcare Information Management System Society, and you say, nobody's worrying about end-to-end trust and security, they go, you're right, I'm glad you are, and then they jump in. So that's why there were so many people in it. And this includes wearable clinical IoT and interoperability with healthcare systems, including EHRs, EMRs, electronic health records, medical records, other clinical IoT devices, in-hospital devices, in ambulance devices, in the field devices, and future devices in connected healthcare systems. What's that about? So we don't know the future, but we know some of the new technologies coming out. We know some of the new distributed identifiers, the DIDs. We know some, quantum is coming out. We know augmented reality, all this stuff. So when we created the standard, we created it with an eye on the future. I always say, I'm an aerospace engineer. You have a heads-down display and a heads-up display, right? The heads-down display is what's going on now. The heads-up display is where are we going, right? And what could it be? And so we actually have those thoughts in the standard. So we created this working group in 2019. It was approved, the standard was approved in 2024. It was published in September. We were awarded the Emerging Technology Award, so fun. I wish my mother was here to see it. And now we're developing a TIPPSS maturity model to help people look at where are they today and how do they improve their standing in TIPPSS to keep the humans, the data, and the devices and the institutions more secure. And we had so much fun as a family, over 300 people together. They said, after you have a standard, you can't work on it anymore, so you don't have a working group. We're like, oh no. So we evolved into a task group. And now what we're doing is we're spinning off new standards opportunities related to TIPPSS. And so I'll tell you, and you could join it if you like. So this is how standards work. I didn't know until I got involved in this. So you initiate a project, as we were talking about. You mobilize the working group. You invite people. You draft the standard, takes a long time. Ballot, gain final approval, and then you maintain it. What we're doing now with this TIPPSS roadmap task group is creating new standards opportunities. We're launching a remote subject monitoring for clinical trials. Anybody is invited to join. This is all free. AI-based coaching for healthcare with TIPPSS, and we're planning to extend it to the smart grid, precision agriculture, vehicles, smart cities, all sorts of cool stuff. So if you want to join, you can connect with me on LinkedIn. I also write books on this. I have a couple with me today I'm going to give away, and a number of articles on this. And so what I'd like to ask you as our first audience participation opportunity is, do you see the potential value of TIPPSS for your company, your ecosystem, your industry, your grandmother? We're flexible. Do you see that TIPPSS could have value, increasing trust, identity, privacy, protection, safety, and security? And we're just going to do a show of hands. We decided to go the old-fashioned way. Do any of you see potential value in this TIPPSS framework? Okay, great. Any of you say, no, stupid? Not yet? I can't see. No, I'm kidding. So, so for those of you who are interested, I would love to talk to you more about it. I'm not selling anything. I'm really just trying to help us make the world safer. So I want to talk to you more about that. And also, I'm going to be giving a couple of books out. So now we're going to go into the National Student Data Corps. It's really international, but it's funded by the National Science Foundation, so they wouldn't let us change the name. So we're going to talk a little bit about this. So when I first took this role to run the Big Data Innovation Hub, I was actually on the board from 2015, and then in 2020 they asked me to run it, and I was like, what? And when we started out, I said, you know what? There are so many people who don't even know data science is a thing. This was in March of 2020. There were very few academic programs at the time. There were a few master's programs, very few undergraduate or community college programs, and a lot of humans and students who couldn't go to college during the pandemic. Either their visas or, there was one young lady, touches my heart every time, like, her mother had triplets, her father lost his job, so she had to quit college to take care of the babies while her mother cleaned houses. I'm like, oh my gosh, how are we gonna help these humans, right? So we decided to create a student data core, and we created a Learner Central, and it has a pedagogical approach to learn data science ethics. No prereqs, learn algebra and pre-algebra, go into intermediate, linear programming, advanced, all this stuff. We have a video library with over about 100 videos in it, and we also have an Educator Central if people are trying to teach it, and all this is open and free. God, this is so big. It's usually this big on my laptop. Isn't this great? So this is the video library, and all these are clickable when you go there. And we have everything from intro to data science. We have about 70 or 80 flashcards, I think it is. These are like little 2 or 3 minute videos. Linear regression, ontologies, probability, what's a data pipeline, what's data science ethics, what's data storytelling, what are types of data, what type of graphs can you use? As very simple stuff to more complicated stuff. A lot on data science ethics. We were talking about AI explainability earlier. We have AI explainability, AI fairness, and then we all have all these other fun things like data acquisition and wrangling. Sounds like a cowboy, right? Some of you know what that is. We have Jupyter notebooks. We have a whole bunch of things, and all this is free, open online. So we started this, for students, and then we called them learners because we have all these people at different phases of their career. We have from middle school students to people in their 60s retooling themselves, for a new career opportunity. And so what I'm thinking now is you all can use this with your friends. You can learn from it. Your colleagues can learn from it. The people that you're hiring can learn from it. And we also have a Masterclass video series where people talk about using AI in particular domain areas. So we have one on precision oncology, AI and precision oncology, to match humans with clinical trials. How cool is that? This is all real stuff. We have generative AI, one of my friends who used to work at Pacific Northwest National Lab. And then this is actually sports analytics, which a lot of people love. This is from a good friend of mine from Brookhaven National Lab, when not to use machine learning. That's one of the challenges with these new tools. I'm an aerospace engineer by training, and I say, we were all about 5 nines, like 99.99% clarity, and now it's like, 85% confidence? I'm like, oh my gosh, you can't put a human in that plane, right? So you have to know when to use these different tools, when not to. And then we have graph analytics, one of my award-winning friends, David Bader, and then AI and DEI, wrong problems, wrong solutions. So different perspectives on how you can use AI and other things. And all of this is open, online, and free. Here's an example of some of the flashcards on data visualizations, data storytelling tools and techniques, Tableau, Power BI, things that you use at work, things that people can learn and they'll know more. Then we have data science projects. We had students and others say to us, I'm trying to get a job in data science, and they're asking me for what real-world work I did. And I told them all I did is go to school. And they said, well, you need experience to get a job. And I said, but I need a job to get experience. So they came to us, and we were like, I can help you with that. So we created data science projects. They all use real-world data. They connect to a real-world data set, like our transportation data science project uses the NYC Open crashes and collisions data set that's updated in real time by cops every day. We have permafrost-fed lakes. We have COVID-related stuff. And then we have like simple ones that you can use to get started, like Netflix data cleaning. People are like, ooh, Netflix, I know Netflix. That's cool, right? So that one just takes an hour or two. So what we always say we try to do with our content is make it accessible, ingestible, and digestible. They can get to it, they can use it easily, it can go in. If they have to watch the video 15 times for it to go in, that's okay, they can, it's all free. We don't track IP addresses, they're not gonna get in trouble with anybody. And then it's digestible, they can learn it. And so they can any of you can do these data science projects and get a certificate. We have people who tell us they use it in internship and job opportunities, and people are really impressed with it because they talk about the real data sets they've used. They can show them the data visualizations that they've done, and it really boosts their confidence as well. So we're really trying to create a data science-enabled workforce. We really are. And some of those people are already in the workforce and need to learn it. We also have fun stuff. We have a data science comic book series that one of my friends who's on our advisory board, Julia Stojanovic, she's a professor at NYU, New York University in New York City, and she created these data science comic books in English, French, Spanish, Portuguese, Greek, really fun. Actually, my favorite one, being an engineer, I remember 10 or 15 years ago when we were first thinking about autonomous vehicles and the cars driving along and there's your mother, there's your baby, and then there's your best friend, who are you gonna kill, right? It's not good. But those are how you have to teach the algorithms, right? It has to make a decision. And so who lives, who dies, who decides. For that reason, this one is my favorite. But there are a bunch of others, and you can see the different languages that they're in. And all of this is open and accessible and online. So my question is, it's all free. I'm not selling anything. Would you be interested in leveraging this open online data science educational content for yourself, your colleagues, your kids, your grandmother? Anybody can use this stuff. Does anybody see value in accessing something like this? Okay, great. Well, you can do it starting today. And we would love you to do it. We also have a bunch of Spanish language resources. We have a lot of Spanish-speaking people in the hub. We have a partnership with the University of Salamanca and a number of others. And so we would love you to leverage this. And that's what I wanted to share with you today. So I went through it kind of quickly, and I'm from New York, so I speak quickly, and I had a little too much coffee.